Hi everyone, this is Sabrina. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to do another reading journal update. This time it is for March, and I will start off by putting in the little books for the year of books. Now, my Silhouette Cameo did them just a smidge off, so that's why I have to trim a little bit of them. I don't know what happened, but it wasn't worth recutting them, so I'm just going with it, and I'm also going to align them right below the top row. And March was an absolutely amazing reading month because I rediscovered my love of audiobooks. So I read a whopping 14 books. I listened to 7 and then I read 7 books. So it was just a really great month for reading. And yeah, I'm so excited to tell you about all the different books that I read and just put together this spread. As you can see, I'm almost done putting in the little book covers. I have one more with this heart, and then I can move on to the next page, which is the favorite book of the month. This was really hard for me to pick, but I finally decided to go with I'm Glad My Mom Died, which was a memoir that everyone has been talking about, and it was fantastic. I actually listened to it, so it was read by the author, and it was just incredible. I mean, heartbreaking and sad and poignant and yeah, all the good stuff. So I would recommend listening to the audio version, and I will be making a favorite page later this month. And yeah, it was just wow. It was so good. I'm also stamping the months, February and March, because I forgot to do February. So I'm just using the Everyday Explorers stamp set. I think I have that linked in my description box, but it is small enough that I can do a little tiny month right below the book cover. Now I'm going to fill in my shelfie, and when I fill in my shelfie, I kind of think about how many pages was the book, and if it was a bigger book, then I'll go for a bigger book that is stamped. So it's a weird little quirky thing that I do, but it works for me, and I'm going to fill up all the different books that I read, and there was a lot of books for the romance challenge this month. I also read 2 books, well, I guess 3 books that everybody was talking about, which was the memoir, also Our Missing Hearts, and then Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. So I read all of those books. And I don't know if I've mentioned this, but for me, these adult fiction type of books where everybody's reading them, they're really hit and miss for me. And for me this month, the only one that was a really great one was the memoir. The other ones were they were okay for me. I had some issues with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. But I will talk about that later. So now I'm filling in Goodreads challenge, and I'm going to fill in, I think, a total of 3 boxes and then 2 pieces of 2 other boxes. And then I'll get out the Everyday Explorer stamp set again to stamp March. I'm going to do March in the 3 boxes big, and then I'll get out the really tiny March and use my piece of paper to just stamp MAR. And I got a new black ink pad, so this is a super juicy ink pad. And since I'm so used to stamping and like pounding the stamp in several times, it's going to take a little bit for me to get used to it, that I don't need to stamp or pound on the ink pad as much to get as much ink, because now I have a brand new ink pad. All right, moving into this goals sheet where I did a total of 7 different goals that I really wanted to focus on this year. And I'm going to fill in 2 boxes for the 100 books, and then also another nonfiction book. I also read 2 Goodreads nominees and awards, so I filled in that as well, and I did pretty good. So I like how that came out. The other thing that I'm kind of picky about, I talked about this in my shelfie, but here the A to Z, I like to pick books that are like really like stood out to me. So that's why I don't write down every single book that I write, but you know, if I need to fill it in later on, I can. But I picked Beauty and the Baller and The Newcomer, and I think Landon and Shay. I wrote those ones down. Now I'm doing the genre, and I have quite a few that I'm going to add to the adult fiction, which is up at the top, and I'm just keeping a pencil tally mark. I'll figure out how to fix that later on or add that to my spread. I also added a ton to the romance section and one to mystery, and then a book by a person of color. So for the Around the USA challenge, it was down in like the Florida region, and I picked a book in Florida, and it was called The Newcomer. It was fantastic. I listened to it on audio and I loved it. I loved the characters, and it was just a really great book. Okay, so now I'm going to work on Rate the Romance, and I think this is my 3rd year doing Rate the Romance, I want to say, and this is actually my best month ever. I got 8 out of 12. I almost had 9 out of 12, but I didn't finish it in time. But I am so excited to have read this many romance books, and I definitely got a bingo if you consider 3 in a row or 3 across or 3 diagonal. So yay me. So I just add these little books to a piece of paper, and that way I can do a flip up and I can still see what the category was underneath. Now, I have to say my favorite romance, I think if I had to pick my favorite romance this month, was Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake or Beauty and the Baller. Really fantastic books, and I actually listened to both of those. Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake was the second book I listened to on audio that really kickstarted my love of audiobooks. It was read by 2 different people, narrated by 2 different people, and it was just a fantastic storyline, and I loved it. Loved it. Same thing with Beauty and the Baller, 2 different narrators, and I really enjoyed listening to that as well. So I also read With This Heart, which I read that on Kindle, and it was a wonderful story about a young girl and a young man who wind up going on a road trip together and discover a lot of different things. That's going to be a favorite book this month as well. Also listened to Maybe Now by Colleen Hoover, which is like the 2nd or 3rd book in the Maybe Someday series. Maybe Someday was one of my all-time favorite books many years ago. And I finally listened to Maybe Now, and that one was just okay. It was okay for me. But I'm glad that I kind of finished up that series. So I stamped all the ratings with a little heart, and now I can move on to making my calendar for March. March always makes me think of flowers and green, so I am going to go with the greens and the blues. And I was making this calendar, and I totally counted my boxes wrong. I can see this when I get over to the second section, like the right-hand side, but what can I do? I can't start over, so I'm just going to have to deal with it. It wouldn't have been such a big deal, but because I read so many books, having these really tiny boxes was kind of a bummer since I needed a lot of room, and some of the books overlapped since it was audiobooks. But next month, I'll make sure that I know how to count. I counted only 3 rows and then drew my box. So I think it needs to be 4 in order to get a really nice big box if I continue to read audiobooks at the rate that I am, which I am. Right now I'm listening to Off the Map, and I just finished Vera Wong on audio, which was unbelievable. I absolutely loved it, and I would love to have Vera Wong in my life, or someone like Vera Wong. It would be fantastic. So I can't say enough about audiobooks. I'm also reading right now Things We Hide from the Light, or Things We Hid from the Light, which is the 2nd book, and I'm loving that book as well. So if you want to leave in the comment section what you're reading or listening to, you know that I would love to read those comments and then add those to my never-ending to be read. So I filled in the calendar and all the dates with a green and then the black marker, and now I can figure out how I want to decorate my spread. When I was going through my box of book die cuts and journaling cards, I found this journaling card from Paper Person Shop, and I loved the colors of the green and blue books. So I decided to just cut those out and use those. Then I took a picture of those books and put it on my computer so I could kind of pull those colors and change the color of my digital stamps. And don't forget, I have a tutorial on how to do this, so I'll leave that up in the eye. But I took this picture, grabbed the colors from there, and changed the color of my digital stamps. And so currently reading, I was able to customize that and die cut it, and that way it matches perfectly with the books that I have physically. So currently reading is going to be my big die cut over on the right hand side, and I have some teal washi, and I'm also going to try to cover up that extra calendar box with some of the books and also another die cut. I stamped M really juicy and really hard because, again, I'm not used to having a new black stamp ink pad, but that's okay. It didn't smudge anywhere, and I didn't get covered in ink, so that's a good thing. So I stamped the March and then didn't quite figure out where I was going to put currently reading, so I just had to move the washi up a little bit, and there's a little bit of space between reading and March, but it's okay. I'll just add a little bit of stamping and you won't be able to tell. Also stacked some blue books right above the washi tape, and I put some more washi tape down in the bottom left, which is a design that I stick with every month. I did this whole design last year because it works for me. So I stamped in the bottom left, I'd rather be reading, and also the number of books, which was 14. I'm also trying to figure out how I want to get my books to sit down on below the calendar. I'm going to put green first and then blue next. I also have a stamp where you layer in the book, and so I tested that first, liked it, and now I'm going to stamp it. So it's going to be a dark blue book with a bookmark, and then light blue teal that says one more chapter. So I love that stamp, and I'm going to do something really cool with some vine stamping in just a second. Another die cut that I have is Devoured This Book, so that helped me to cover up that extra calendar page. Okay, so now I have this vine stamp, and I'm going to do it kind of coming out of both sides of the book, which is, I think, really cool. Turned out awesome. And it's a stamp set from Everyday Explorers. I don't think that they have it anymore, but it's, you know, such a great stamp set. And I think if you can get a basic vine flower greenery stamp set, that would be perfect to add to your stamp collection. So if there's any out there, I will try to add those in the description box because there's just so versatile to have greenery stamp sets in your collection. Also added some greenery next to the books below the extra calendar space, and I'm going to add some dots and X's in the darker blue color. So it's coming together fantastically, and I just love this color scheme. I just love it. I thought I would, when I first started putting this together, I thought I would go with much more of the greens and all the greens, but I decided to add in the blues, and I'm so glad that I did. So on the second day of the month, I finished Lizzie Blake, and again, that was a fantastic book. And then on the 4th, I finished Well Traveled, which was the 4th in the series. And I really love the series. It started out great, but now on the 4th one, I'm like, where's the chemistry? I think I'm done with this series because I don't want it to be ruined anymore. I don't know, not enjoying that series, or at least that book. On Sunday, I finished Beauty and the Baller, which was just amazing. I loved that story, and I know a lot of people have talked about that book, but I'm glad Rate the Romance kind of pushed me to actually read that book finally. And as you can see, I'm going to wind up stacking books and figuring out where I can put them. And not every single book is going to have the line to show like where I read it, especially the audiobooks, because it's just going to wind up being double lines and it's going to get messy. So I decided to just mainly do the physical books, I guess you could say, or the books that I didn't listen to. Another fun book that I found was called The Do-Over, which was a young adult book about a girl that's basically reliving Valentine's Day over and over again. And it was a really great book. I listened to it and it was really great. I was so surprised. And I enjoyed the characters and the growth in the characters and the whole storyline. I could totally see that book, The Do-Over, becoming like a Netflix teen romance type of book. It was really good. And then I finished out the month with This Heart, which was another Rate the Romance book that I picked out, and I really enjoyed that one. It was a very sweet, quick book. So now for the next page where I do all the stats, I decided to take this washi tape that has the books on it from the Paper Person shop and go ahead and cut out just the green and blue sections. So I just have to figure out where I'm going to put the pieces of washi tape that I don't use, and I'll probably maybe put them in my planner or my journal, but for now they are stuck on a piece of paper, like a wax piece of paper. But I love how I decided to cut out just those blue and green pieces. I also decided that I really did not want to shrink down my books. They're already at 1.5 inches tall by 1 inch wide. And I just didn't want to make them any smaller. So I decided to do an insert this little piece of paper, and yeah, it's going to turn out so awesome. I love how this turned out, and I'm excited to bring it all to life. I also have a green die cut that I made with a digital stamp that is like audiobook headphones, and I love it. It's perfect. I am also going to add some washi tape to that bottom section, and again, just cut out the books that I want from that washi tape. And then the extra washi tape with all the other colors, I'll find a purpose for that later on somewhere down the road. So I start with pages, and it was 4,825 pages. And I kind of forgot to write down the total number of hours that I listened to audiobooks. I probably should have done that in one of my categories that goes above the genres, but you know, you guys, I was not planning on falling in love with audiobooks again. So I don't even have like a stats page or anything to keep track of it at the beginning of my reading journal. So it should be interesting. Maybe at the end of the year, I can add in something to the end of my journal about audiobooks. So for genres, I did sports, memoir, romance, young adult, dystopia, sci-fi, and contemporary. And then the categories I did was audiobooks, 7, favorites, 5, and 2 were just meh. And those were more of the adult fiction ones that I talked about earlier, Our Missing Hearts and Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I know, if you loved either of those books, don't be mad, but I can talk to you about them, but I don't know, they just didn't resonate for me, and I felt like there was a lot of character flaws in the Tomorrow book. And I guess I really enjoyed the storyline, and I liked how it was realistic, but I don't feel like anything was solved in the end, and it was just very realistic, like true to life. Like there wasn't really any happy ending, you know? And yeah, so I don't know, it just didn't resonate with me. Over on the right-hand side, I put paper and Kindle. Paper is 5 and Kindle is 2. And then, of course, there's 7 audiobooks. I am going to work on my pie chart now, which I love making this pie chart. It makes me so happy. I'm no expert on making it, but what I do is I start with my pencil and then divide it into quarters because that's really easy. And then I use the pie chart from Storygraph app and go from there. So my biggest section again is emotional. I think this is the third month where it's emotional. And then the second big one's going to be reflective. So I'm just going to try to figure out how I can make these 6 different sections, and then I'll grab some pins, and I'm doing the blues and greens, and I'm going to pick some really great colors to help pull this whole color scheme together. it's just looking so awesome. And like I said, I love making this journal. It is so much fun. So I got to grab these markers and a piece of paper to test my colors because I don't want to get too dark of greens, and I just want to make sure I get a good mix of colors. So the biggest section is going to get a nice big green, and that green also matches well with the die cut over on the other side. I also have the little bubbles that I make to tell you what each section means. So like I said, the big green one is going to be emotional. I decided to kind of do the next one to be blue, and that'll be, like I said, reflective. The next one's going to be green, which is lighthearted, and the next one's like a deeper blue, and that'll be funny, sad, and then other. Now, I have noticed that on Storygraph, some of these books are like saying that it's a funny book and it's not. And I'm like, how do you change that? Can I tell someone that that is not what that book is? So that's been interesting to kind of take note of that, that I don't agree with what Storygraph is saying. But I suppose that I could keep track of this on my own, but that would be a little more complicated. So for now, we're just going with what Storygraph says. I have a brand new stamp set, like I said, so I am just stamping a beautiful, crisp, black stamped title, and it is making me so happy. So again, using the Carrie Bradford Iris stamp set, and it looks great. So another reason that I'm so happy that I did this flip out is because when I laid out these books as my normal 444, I noticed that when I would close the flap, I was going to see all yellow book covers. I had a lot of yellow book covers, and I knew that that was going to kind of throw off my blues and greens. So what I decided to do was 5, 5, and then 4. And I made my insert just a little bit skinnier, and I love how this came out. So I'm just going to glue down my headphones and then open it up and start to add in the book covers. So again, it's going to be a row of 5 and then 5 and then 4. And the bottom row will allow me to add in a little stamped sentiment and also my average rating. So I put these books down, and then I got to grab the My Rating stamp set and make sure that it will all fit. The My Rating is from Syncopation Designs Resting Book Face. And you guys, guess what? She has a whole new stamp set, 2 of them coming out, I think later this month, along with a digital reading collection. I cannot wait. And I will definitely do like a walkthrough of the kit and the stamps, and I'm so excited. You might even get an extra reading journal video next month to talk about the new kit because it's just going to be fantastic, and I'm excited to add it to my collection. All right, I am stamping my rating for each of these books, and I'm going to do the ones that are along the edge. I'm going to do those ones in just a little bit. I also read the 3rd book, Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun. I love the characters. They are hilarious and such a hot mess. I will say it is getting very convoluted and messy, and I'm just ready for something, anything to go towards a resolution. And, but I really enjoy the books, and I love the series, but I would like something to go towards a resolution. I have one more stack of green books that I cut out, so I added that to the bottom right for the average rating. And I'm also going to stamp Bookmarks Are for Quitters. I stamp it in blue and then decide, you know what, I really want that in black. So I'm going to stamp it in black and then fussy cut it out. My average rating was 4.23. And that's even with a few books that got like lower ratings, like Well Traveled, which I mentioned earlier. It's just, I'm kind of done with that series. I also gave a little bit of a low rating to Midnight at the Bright Ideas bookstore. It feels like a random book that was just thrown in there, which it kind of was. I only stumbled on it for the Read Around the USA challenge, and I decided to read it even though it was for February, and I wound up listening to it. So I stuck through it, and it was just all right. Another sweet romance was Georgie All Along, coming back to her hometown. kind of having to start over again, and she meets the town hottie, I guess you could say, and it had just a great atmosphere to it and great characters, and I really enjoyed the character development. So I just fixed the bookmarks are for quitters. I wanted that, like I said, in black ink. And now I will stamp some more of the vines that ties together both the calendar page and also the stats page. And then I will add in the blue circles and X's as well. And I'm going to decorate this little flap as well. I thought I might stamp out this really fun title that says Rediscovering the Love of Audiobooks. But one, that felt too long, and two, it felt like it might take away from the overall spread and the title of all the stats. So what I'm going to decide to do is like 3 different clustered sections of stamping going vertically up. So you'll have the leaves in 3 different spots, an open book in 3 different spots, and then some word phrases. Pulled out my really old Feed Your Craft stamp set to stamp A Good Book is Always at Hand. Listen Up in the middle, which is kind of the more bold stamp set or stamp phrase to represent audiobooks. And then up in the top, it says On the Edge of My Seat. So really love how this little insert came together, and I'm excited to maybe try this again another month if I read a ton of books, but I probably won't do it every month. All right, we've made it to the end. I hope that you have enjoyed this really long reading journal video. I would love a thumbs up or a subscribe if you are new to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.